Hello students, in this video lecture we are going to cover the poem If My Darling by Philip Larkin. In this poem, the poet describes the speaker's perspective on his own emotional state and the inner workings of his mind. He is talking to his beloved. As the title of the poem also suggests, he is addressing his beloved, but there is a condition because the title also has the word if. So, moving on with the poem, first of all, we see what the structure of the poem is, and it is very important. The poem has 8 stanzas with 3 lines each. So, when we have a stanza with 3 lines, we call it a tercet. It is important to note that there is no fixed rhyme scheme here. So, you will not find the first or the third line rhyming with each other, or maybe the first and the second line rhyming with each other. So no fixed rhyme scheme at all. There is a lot of negation as it is written over here. Negation. Negation means when there is a factor of no, not, never, haven't, doesn't. So you will see that the word no and nor, they are repeated, and in these two stanzas only, stanza number 2 and 3, they are repeated about 6 times. So no nor, no nor, this is how the repetition goes. Larkin's use of repetition here is, it is the use of the poetic device anaphora. When we will do poetic devices, you will also come across this word again. Anaphora, basically, in very simple terms, you can say it is like a repetition. The title of the poem, again, the title of the poem is very important. As I had just mentioned, that when you look at the title of the poem, the reader immediately comes to know that the poet is actually addressing his beloved, because in the title he has used the word darling. And here, as I have written here, the title of the poem is misleading and ironical also, because immediately when you look at the title, you feel as if this is some kind of a love poem, but it is definitely not a love poem. So the title is misleading. Misleading का हिंदी में मतलब होता है कि ये हमें एक तरह से गुमराह करता है. ऐसा लगता है टाइटल पढ़ने के बाद कि ये एक love poem hai, but actually this is not. Coming on to the poetic devices, now these are also important. The first poetic device is the use of simile. Simile, as we all know, it is a kind of a comparison, but it is different from a metaphor because the poet uses words like and as. These words are important. Only then we call a comparison a simile. As it is written here, line number 3, we have this. The speaker asks the beloved to jump like Alice. So it is a comparison. It becomes a simile. Loitering like bullies. Simile again. As the skin of a grave. Simile again. Alliteration. In line number 16, we have a sense and adhesive. So and a. So this poetic device has been covered in a number of poems before, but I'm just going to repeat it one more time. Alliteration is the repetition of initial sounds. In a poem, when initial sounds of words which come together, they are the same, or you can say they are repeated, then we call it alliteration. Just like here, so, and so, stuffed with small printed books for the Sabbath. Here, burr and burr, butler bibulous. So, use of alliteration. Now again, oxymoron. What is this poetic device oxymoron? Oxymoron means when two opposite meaning words or very contrary words they come together. So here butler is bibulous, and it is important to note what is the meaning of bibulous. Bibulous here means drunken. When we will do the lines, even then I will explain this to you. Bibulous means drunken. So butler is supposed to be the manager of the house, managing the household, doing chores, and he is supposed to be a very well mannered fellow. So bibulous butler, a drunken butler itself becomes an oxymoron. Similarly, housemaid lazy. So laziness is not something that we want to associate with a housemaid, because a housemaid is somebody who is supposed to do a lot of work. So definitely being a lazy housemaid would be an oxymoron. Moving on, the next poetic device is anaphora. So the anaphora is basically repetition, and we have done just in the beginning only. While doing the structure, this word anaphora was discussed. It also means repetition, as explained there only, that the words no, no, nor, nor, they are repeated, and in beginning of consecutive lines when words are repeated, it is known as anaphora. The next poetic device is contrast. So here the contrast is between the experience. So the poet compares his beloved to Alice, because he says you jump like Alice. This we will see when we start reading the poem, the text of the poem. So he compares basically, we had also done how this is a simile, because he asks his beloved to jump like Alice. And if we, obviously this reference is from Alice in Wonderland, and in this adventure, Alice in Wonderland is a dream magical adventure which this girl named Alice has, and this adventure is basically a very positive regenerating experience for Alice, because she visits a world which is called a wonderland. So definitely it is a positive experience. But here the why do we call it a contrast? Contrast को हिंदी में बिल्कुल कहते हैं कि जब बहुत ही विपरीत अनुभव हो, जैसे काला और सफेद कॉन्ट्रास्ट है, ठीक है, एक दूसरे का बिल्कुल ऑपोजिट है. सिमिलरली जो एलिस का एक्सपीरियंस है, द एक्सपीरियंस दैट एलिस हैज ड्यूरिंग हर एडवेंचर is positive and very regenerating, as compared to that the experience that the beloved has. Her experience definitely is very negative, and it is heartbreaking also, because the lover asks his beloved to come and visit his mind, just like Alice visited the वंडरलैंड. तो जैसे एलिस वंडरलैंड में घूमने गई थी, वो लवर अपनी बिलवेड को कहता है कि तुम मेरे दिमाग का एक चक्कर लगाओ, यहाँ घूमो, and then the experience that she would have would definitely not be very pleasing experience. बड़ा अच्छा experience उसका नहीं होता है. तो वो इसीलिए we say that Alice's adventure in Wonderland is contrasted to the beloved's experience in the lover's mind. Next, we come to symbolism. So, lots of symbols are used. For example, this symbol fender seat. Fender seat is a seat near the fireplace. So, it is supposed to be a very cozy place. Okay, then shelves stuffed with small printed books for the Sabbath are symbols for orderly life of Victorian age. Sabbath हो जाए छुट्टी वाला दिन, जैसे Sunday. So on Sunday people used to really relax and read books. This was how a kind of life people in Victorian age they used to live. They used to live a very orderly life. बड़ा तरतीब से जिंदगी, वेल ऑर्गेनाइज जिंदगी जीते थे, अपना फायर प्लेस के पास बैठते थे, रिलैक्स करते थे, संडे के दिन बुक्स पढ़ते थे सब लोग. सो इट वाज काइंड ऑफ एन ऑर्डरली लाइफ. So these two things, these books and this seat, they become symbols of that life. Now the next symbol here an example is given: monkey, brown fish, gray, a string of infected circles. All of these are colors: monkey brown color, fish gray color, and infected circles. They are symbols for the dirtiness of the lover's mind, the filth and sickness. Filth का मतलब होता है गंदगी, sickness का मतलब होता है बीमारी. So filth is waste, dirt, garbage. Sickness is definitely disease. So the lover's mind is basically a diseased place, and these colors, they are symbols for this disease. The last poetic device is personification. So the poet uses personification or personifies his own thoughts. Delusions are the poet's own or the lover's own thought, and he says his thoughts are like bullies. So bullies are boys who try to dominate, beat up smaller children. जैसे स्कूल में होता है कि बड़े बच्चे होते हैं, छोटे बच्चों को मारते हैं, तंग करते हैं, पुश करते हैं. They are called bullies. Bullies are usually well built, strong people who try to dominate and hurt those who are weaker. तो अपने से कमजोर को जो बुली करते हैं, तंग करते हैं, परेशान करते हैं, उन्हें बुलीज कहा जाता है. यहाँ पोएट अपने थॉट्स को बुलीज कह रहा है. So definitely it becomes a personification. The lover's delusion then filthy thoughts are personified as bullies who are dominating his mind and intimidating the lady love's thoughts. तो उसके thoughts, उसकी beloved के thoughts को intimidate कर रहे हैं, dominate कर रहे हैं. This is what he's trying to say, and that is why it becomes a good example of personification. Now we come to the text of the poem. So here we have the first stanza. As you can see, as defined in the structure also, that the stanza consists of 3 lines, so it is called a tercet. And if you read it, decide, eyes, head, there is no particular rhyme scheme here. So 3 lines and no particular rhyme scheme. This is how every stanza of this poem is going to be. And there is a small reference also, as you can see in the very last line. The poet talks of Alice, and Alice is this basically reference comes from Alice in Wonderland. This is a story. This is a story of a young girl named Alice. It is a fictional story written by here, as I have written, what happens basically, Alice in Wonderland, it is a fictional story of a magical adventure that this young girl named Alice has when she sees a magic bunny rabbit and she jumps down a rabbit hole in his pursuit. तो एलिस एक लड़की है, बच्ची है, वो एक रैबिट को देखती है, वो एक मैजिकल रैबिट है, और वो उसका पीछा करते करते एक रैबिट होल में जंप कर लेती है, और वो रैबिट होल सीधा उसे वंडरलैंड की तरफ ले जाता है, इसीलिए इसे एक मैजिकल एडवेंचर कहते हैं, क्योंकि असली में एलिस सिर्फ एक सपना देख रही है, बट इन दैट ड्रीम Alice basically visits a wonderland, and this story was written by R.L. Stevenson. A very popular story for kids, basically. And here the poet uses the reference of this character Alice from this poem, from this story. So definitely we must know what the poet is talking about. So here the poet speaks for the lover. So the lover is speaking here, and he says, if my darling were once to decide not to stop at my eyes. And see here in these lines, definitely we come to know that the lover is addressing his beloved and says that if someday his beloved decides to have a look inside his mind, then definitely it will be an adventure for her. And what kind of adventure it is going to be? It is going to be like Alice. Not to stop at my eyes. So here eyes represent the physical self of the lover. So the beloved is not just going to look at the eyes of the lover, but she would one day she would decide that I am going to look inside the head. Skirt, he says, but to jump like Alice with floating skirt into my head. So she is going to jump, and here in the illustration also you can see just the way Alice had jumped into the head, and see how Alice's skirt is floating here. Similarly, the he imagines the beloved also jumping and her skirt floating while she goes down and down right into the head of the lover. Moving on, he says, she would find no tables and chairs, no mahogany claw-footed sideboards, no undisturbed embers. And this is what we were talking about, anaphora. No, no, no. See how three times in every line, three lines, this is the second stanza, and in every line there is this negation. The lover basically lists things that the beloved would not find, the beloved would not find in his head. Maybe these are things that she had imagined would be there. हो सकता है उसने सोचा हो ये सब उसके दिमाग में होगा, पर लवर कह रहा है कि ये सब चीजें उसके दिमाग में नहीं है, नहीं है, नहीं है. And he stresses on the word no because he repeats them three times in every line he's saying it. She would find no tables and chairs, no mahogany claw-footed sideboards, no undisturbed embers. Here basically he is talking of all the furniture, and all this furniture is a symbol of richness, a symbol of sophistication, and a very organized, neat, and clean life. But unfortunately, his life is nothing like this. It is not rich, not sophisticated, not organized, not neat, and not clean. He only thinks that there is only dirt in his mind and nothing clean about it. So basically, the poet here lists all the things that the beloved would not find. This lack of furniture, it is very important to note here, this lack of furniture implies that there is a barrenness, or you can say a blankness in his mind. उसका माइंड जो है जैसे एक कमरा होता है जिसमें कोई टेबल ना हो, चेयर ना हो, कोई सुंदर से साइड बोर्ड्स ना हो, कहीं आग जलने वाला फायर प्लेस ना हो. एम्बर्स का मतलब होता है फायर, तो फायर वही होगी जहां फायर प्लेस होगा. सो ऑल दीज थिंग्स आर नॉट देयर इन हिज माइंड. इट बेसिकली represents that his mind is blank and it is barren. Moving on, in the third stanza, what does the poet say? In the third stanza, again he talks of things that are not there. Again, you see that there is a repetition of nor, and nor. Instead of um, instead of no, he is using the word nor repeatedly, and it also symbolizes negation again. So he says again, these are things that she will not find. So stanza number 2 and 3 mean exactly the same. They represent the blankness of his mind. And this is not what the beloved had expected. The beloved definitely had not expected this. So he says the Tantalus would not be filled. And here, just to make the explanation easier, I have given this picture also. This is a Tantalus, and this was a very sophisticated item in an English household. These, as you can see, are liquor bottles. So the liquor bottles are visible. They are visible and yet they are locked. Here you can see this is a lock here. So you cannot take out the liquor bottles even though you can see them. So this is called a Tantalus, and he says Tantalus are supposed to be served when guests arrive. So they are supposed to be opened. यहाँ चाबी लगा के खोला जाता है और फिर ये sophisticated liquor bottles निकाली जाती है. Definitely very very expensive also. तो जैसे मैंने कहा उस जमाने के इंग्लिश घरों में ये मिलते थे, लेकिन वो कहता है यहाँ पर तुम्हें ये भी नहीं मिलेंगे. रीजन अगेन द सेम. Here this Tantalus, the fender seat, the books, okay, the butler, the housemaids, all of these are again जैसे पिछले stanza में he was talking of furniture. In this stanza he is not talking of furniture. He is again talking of all the stuff that makes a house cozy, livable, welcoming. But according to the poet, his mind is not cozy, it is not livable, and it is not welcoming. That is why he has used this negation. So, I hope you have understood the meaning of Tantalus here. Tantalus is this. And no fender seat cozy. Let me make some space over here. So the fender seat is a seat besides the fireplace which makes the room very, very cozy. And these are books to be read on a holiday or a Sunday also. So the Sunday or any holiday is known as the Sabbath day, and you would not find any butlers, you would not find any housemaids. So basically the lover tries to say that there is a lack of coziness and lot of coldness. You can also say there is a lack of warmth in his mind. It is not a welcoming place. This is what he wants to say. And moving on to stanza number 4, the poet says she would find herself looped. Now we come to what she will find. In stanza number 4 and 5, the lover talks of things that the beloved would find, and these are definitely not very good things. उसे क्या मिलेगा स्टैंजा नंबर 4-5 में, स्टैंजा नंबर 2 and 3 में वो कहता है उसे क्या नहीं मिलेगा, स्टैंजा नंबर 4-5 में वो बता रहा है कि उसे क्या मिलेगा. And the lover says she would find herself looped with the creep of wearing light. And creep is a very interesting word here, because creep means scary, something something that inspires fear. So he's talking of his mind which would cause fear, and looped means circled. So she will be circled, she will be, or you can say enveloped, वो घिर जाएगी एक स्केरी लाइट में. ऐसा डरावना उसका दिमाग है, उसे ऐसा लगता है. एंड व्हाट काइंड ऑफ लाइट इज ही टॉकिंग अबाउट? दीज आर द कलर्स ऑफ लाइट. These are the colors of light, and these are definitely not very beautiful colors. They are rather very dull, dull colors which you can say which create a scary atmosphere. Colors, he says, monkey brown, fish gray, a string of infected circles. I had also explained to you in the poetic devices that how these are symbols for the filthy mind that the lover has. So he is judging his own mind. वो अपने ही माइंड के बारे में बात कर रहा है कि उसका माइंड जो है उसमें इस तरह की डरावनी लाइटिंग है. कहने का मतलब है कि उसका माइंड बिल्कुल भी वेलकमिंग या ब्यूटीफुल नहीं है. बहुत ही फिल्थ और डर्ट और वेस्ट उसके अंदर भरा हुआ है. Loitering like bullies about to coagulate. And here this line is in continuation with stanza number 5. दिस इज स्टैंजा नंबर 4. तो ये लाइन आगे स्टैंजा नंबर 5 से कंटिन्यू हो रही है, आगे मीनिंग कंटिन्यू हो रहा है. और इसमें पोएट ये कह रहा है कि उसके दिमाग में जो कि लाइटिंग है वो बहुत भयानक है. ये पहली 2 लाइनों में तो उसने ये कहा है कि वो डर जाएगी. एंड इन दिस लाइन आई एम गोइंग टू रीड स्टैंजा नंबर 5 नाउ. उसके दिमाग में घूम रहे हैं बुलीज बनकर. If you remember, I had told you in the poetic devices that this is an example of personification. His own thoughts are being compared to bullies, and this he will say in the next stanza. Delusions are his thoughts. He says his thoughts are loitering. Loitering का मतलब होता है moving around. like bullies that shrink to the size of a woman's glove, then sicken inclusively outwards. I will just write this in a very simple way so that you understand. Um, the beloved would not find anything likable or enjoyable in the lover's mind. Rather, she would be scared by the horror in his mind. The light is moving, it is changing. If you see stanza number 4, he says varying light. Varying matlab changing. Changing light. So the light is changing, it is moving, and it would kind of loop around her, and she would be scared, scaring her. Then he says that there are menacing thoughts that roam around like bullies in his mind. It is as if the speaker himself is disgusted by his own thoughts. ऐसे लगता है कि वो अपने आप से ही बहुत ही नफरत करता है. He is disgusted by himself and by the state of his mind. So he says they will sicken. इसका don't try to go into the literal meaning of these words. He's basically he's saying that his thoughts are sometimes small and sometimes they just come out. So sometimes his thoughts are small and sometimes they just expand outwards. She would also remark the unwholesome floor as it might be the skin of a grave. So his mind is being compared to a grave. I'm just removing some portion here so that I have some space to write. So in very simple words, you can say, I'm just writing the meaning in simple words, that in his mind, his delusions shrink and grow almost like a festering wound. फेस्टरिंग वूंड होता है एक ऐसा घाव जो कि जल्दी जल्दी ठीक नहीं होता है. कभी ऐसे लगता है ठीक होने वाला है, छोटा हो जाता है, लेकिन फिर इसे उसमें पस भर जाती है और वो बहुत ही ज्यादा भयानक रूप ले लेता है. इट विल ग्रोज. So shrinking and growing like a festering wound. This is the kind of mind, this is the kind of thoughts that he has in his mind. This is what he's saying. And then he says it is the image of a grave. This is also a very fearful, very, very horrible image that he is creating. The image of the grave. Um, it can be, you can compare it like the skin of a dead body. These are the kind of filthy thoughts that he carries in his brain. So these are the symbols of the thoughts that he carries in his brain. Moving on to the next stanza, the poet says, from which ascends an adhesive sense of betrayal. What does the beloved find here? It is a sense of betrayal. So here, just like a bad smell comes from a grave, similarly, from the poet's mind comes the stench of betrayal. Betrayal is a not very healthy feeling. It is a very unhealthy, dirty emotion when you are disloyal. तो उसके दिमाग में से जैसे कि एक डिसलॉयल्टी की, धोखे की बदबू आ रही है, उसको खुद को ऐसा महसूस होता है. From which ascends means rises. So adhesive means sticking. जैसे कि एक बुरी गंध जो है वो कपड़ों में घुस जाती है, निकलती ही नहीं है, बिल्कुल उसी तरह से उसे लगता है कि एक चिपकने वाली एक धोखे की बदबू उसके अंदर से आती है, उसके दिमाग के अंदर से आती है. From which ascends an adhesive sense of betrayal, a Grecian statue kicked in the private's money, a swill tub of finer feelings. And see how he's just using words. इनका अपने आप में कोई मतलब हो ना हो, लेकिन they might not have a meaning in themselves. These terms and these are the just images that he is creating to tell us, to tell the reader the kind of dirt or filth he carries in his माइंड. उसका दिमाग कितनी गंदगी से भरा हुआ है, यही बताने के लिए वो इन इमेजेस का यूज कर रहा है. इनका अपने आप में कोई मीनिंग नहीं है, बट अल्टीमेटली दे आर इमेजेस. And see, obviously a Grecian statue, a statue made in Greece or having a Grecian god's image or something. And swill tub of finer feelings, the meaning of swill tub you must write down over here. Swill tub is a tub used for washing pigs. So definitely, what kind of feelings would they be? So this refers to dirty, unclean feelings. Okay, and money. So this refers to greed. So every kind of negative feeling is coming out from his mind. Okay, so these are all very unhealthy. All of these are very unhealthy emotions. And he feels that in his mind there is a lot of filth. And he says, but most of all, she'd be stooping her ears against the incessant means continuous, लगातार, recital means a recital is basically a rendition. हिंदी में अगर हम इसे कहें तो जैसे कि कोई अपना गाना या फिर अपनी परफॉर्मेंस कर रहा होता है, तो ऐसे लगता है कि कॉन्टिन्यूअसली एक म्यूजिक उसके दिमाग में चल रहा है जो कि उसकी बिलवेड भी सुनेगी. देयर इज अ कॉन्टिन्यूअस साउंड or music which the beloved would be listening to. But then she would plug her ears. She would cover her ears. Stopping her ears. Stopping means covering. वो अपने कान बंद कर लेगी. ठीक है. the incessant recital intoned by reality. So this is like a shrill cry of reality in front of her, and this reality is highly contrast to the imagination. उसने क्या इमेजिन किया था और क्या रियलिटी उसके सामने आई है, वो अपने कान बंद कर लेगी क्योंकि रियलिटी की चीख उसे सुनाई देगी. And see how he explains it. He says she'd be stopping her ears against the incessant recital intoned by reality, larded with technical terms, each one double yoked with meaning and meaning's rebuttal. And in this line, he basically means to say that there will be no meaning. Rebuttal का मतलब होता है cancellation. So even meaning is cancelled. So the cancelling of meaning. So basically he means to say there would be no meaning that the beloved would be able to make out. His mind would be like a puzzle. It will be filled with double meanings. He says double yoked with meanings. So many double meanings. It will be like a puzzle, and she would not be able to make out any meaning at all. Any meaning at all. Okay. So I will just explain this as we move on. I hope this stanza is clear to you. And I must say that this is stanza number 7 and it is in continuation with stanza number 8. यही मीनिंग स्टैंजा नंबर 8 में भी कंटिन्यू हो रहा है. यही चीख, यही मीनिंगलेसनेस, यही श्रिल वॉइस जो जिसके अगेंस्ट उसकी बिलवेड अपने कान बंद कर लेती है, उसके दिमाग में ऐसी चीखें, लवर के दिमाग में ऐसी चीखें उसे सुनाई देती है, लेकिन किसी भी बात का कोई मतलब दिखाई नहीं देता है. This meaning is going to be continued in the last stanza also. And he says, for the skirl of that bulletin. Skirl of that bulletin means the shrill cry of the noise in his mind. The noise in his mind would be so shrill, इतनी तीखी आवाज उसकी होगी. And his word is like a knot. Knot का मतलब होता है गांठ. So the lover's mind is as difficult to understand as the unfolding of a knot. जैसे एक गांठ को खोलना मुश्किल है, उसी तरह के से लवर के माइंड को समझना बहुत ही ज्यादा मुश्किल है. And see the final two lines. He says, and to hear how the past is past and the future neuter might knock my darling off her unpriceable pivot. And see how he says the past is past. जो past है वो बीत गया है. The past is already over. And the future neuter. Neuter means it is zero. So his future is totally nil. There is nothing in his future. So what remains in the mind of the lover? It is something. It is something so unpredictable. It is as if his mind is totally blank. If there is any meaning, that meaning the beloved is not able to understand, and she will be knocked off. नॉक्ड ऑफ मीन्स वो हिल जाएगी, वो ट्रेम्बल करेगी, वो अनसेटल हो जाएगी अपनी जगह से। वो जगह जिस पे वो बैठी है वो बहुत खुश है, लेकिन उसके माइंड के अंदर झांकते ही वो अपनी जगह से हिल जाएगी, अनसेटल हो जाएगी. इट विल बी a horrifying experience to her. In the final two lines, the speaker says that if his beloved if his darling were to see the kind of inner life that he lives, where there is no future and everything is a puzzle, then she would be shocked and it would unsettle her. This poem might appear to be a bit difficult. This poem might appear to be complicated, but if you don't really go deep down into the meaning of every word, but understand the kind of confusion that the lover is trying to depict in his own mind, तो ऐसे लगता है कि वो अपने ही माइंड से डरता है कि उसकी बिलवेड जिस दिन उसके अंदर झांक लेगी उसे कैसा लगेगा, वो शॉक्ड हो जाएगी. This is the kind of feeling that he is trying to express. Thank you very much.